Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we start into these veto overrides today, I'd like to address one issue. So we might as well do this early because the governor has sent a letter this morning to us all that uses this excuse in 11 different bills. And so I'm just going to go ahead and address this issue on this one because this is the first one that just came up that he had on that list. But he continues to bring up the excuse that he does not have to follow the law when we don't line item appropriations or claims that we aren't funding these measures. First and foremost, we don't line item everything in a budget. But for the last 5 years, the governor has used this excuse. So maybe we need to start line iteming everything for him. The governor and his administration continues to quote a portion of a Supreme Court opinion, Fletcher versus the Commonwealth, saying that opinion gives him the ability not to follow the law. To give a little background about the case, if you haven't read that case, the General Assembly left without passing a budget that year. So no money, not one penny, was appropriated when they left that year. This was the basis of that opinion. However, he and his administration continue to leave out one important piece later on in that opinion where it goes on to point out that when the General Assembly does pass a budget, it says this, and I quote, "If the legislative department fails to appropriate funds deemed sufficient to operate the executive department at a desired level of services, the executive department must serve the citizens of this state as best it can with what it is given." So, Governor, when we don't line item an issue or point to an appropriation, it's because we feel you have adequate funding in your budget to follow the law. In this recent letter that the governor sent us, he also points to Planned Parenthood versus Cameron, saying that ruling states he doesn't have to follow the law when funding is required and there's no specific appropriation. I really don't even know why he cites this case because he leaves out the part that it was overturned in appeals court, so it's completely moot. The governor makes the excuse for not following the law due to funding. However, there have been many times over the past 5 years that he has implemented new plans and programs on his own that didn't have funding. One of the most recent laws he didn't implement was the kinship payment program that we passed overwhelmingly last year out of this body and out of the Senate to help the foster children of our state. Or the community engagement program to put people on public assistance back to work. Yet he used $50 million to expand Medicaid, to increase Medicaid reimbursement rates in certain areas. He doesn't even follow his own guidance. So to sum it up, what we budget, and let me be very clear, it is the legislature that budgets, not him. When we budget, we don't line item everything. And when we don't line item something specifically or pass other bills without direct appropriations in it, it's because we feel you have the adequate funds to implement and follow the law. The governor and his administration must use its best judgment to allocate the funds that were appropriated to them to serve the citizens of this state as best it can with what it's given, even if they deem the amount of those funds insufficient to fully accomplish all of the assigned tasks. When he doesn't implement and follow the law, the people of this state suffer for it. Those are the expectations of the governor and his administration, but he continues to act like it isn't clear. So I will say this in closing. Don't worry, Governor, because next year when we do the budget, we're going to make it abundantly clear what you can and cannot spend money on. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.